This book makes me say, whoa, wow, every chapter. Like, I have read actually only 70%, but I'm like overwhelmed by. Hi, Amrxt.
Hi, Amrxt.
So, which book do you have today?
So, I have this book called Under a White Sky by Elizabeth Colbert. I picked it up because Bill Gates and Obama recommended it.
Wow.
Not that I read all the books that are recommended by them, but this one stood out because of its title, because I also wanted to read a book about nature and man's influence on nature. You know, the Anthropocene, which is the epoch we live in, which is, that man has changed nature so much that today it's no longer natural. Nothing is really natural. So, what is the book that you have?
My book is called Mother of Invention. And Mother of Invention is written by this woman called Catherine Merkel, I guess. It's a book about how in a lot of science and technology, women have played very important roles. And yet the whole narration of how science and technology has helped human beings reach where we are is written, dominated by men in general. And so there are a lot of insightful stories in this book which sort of breaks that myth. That's what I loved about it. And they stood there like, wow. I mean, this book makes me say, whoa, wow, every chapter. Like, I have read actually only 70%, but I'm like overwhelmed by not being aware of so many such stories where women played. Beyond this Madame Curie discovering something, it's insane. It's insane.
That's awesome. So both of us have picked up women-written books, and they're not directly business books. And so I'm really eager to have this discussion and just understand what you want me to take from that book. And I'm really excited about sharing my insight from this. Would you want to start?
Sure. So this book has this chapter where Catherine talks about electric cars. And with all Tesla has sort of really done a lot. I mean, there were EVs before, and we had the small car, forgot the brand, which is funny. Reva or something. So electric cars and buzz has been around for a while, but nobody took them very seriously till Tesla did its magic and super luxury positioning, etc., etc. This book traces when in 1920s, when most of the world still had horse carriages and cars were being sort of designed and worked by a bunch of these guys around 1900 to 1920, where it was happening all that. Initially, both models, the combustion engine model and electric model, were being developed. What happened is, back then cars were not being positioned specifically as easy to use alternative to horse carriage. They were more like a male toy, and in fact there are a bunch of ads where the electric car and combustion both are being developed parallelly. One is being positioned more to women. Hey, you have these long skirts and you don't want a noisy thing, while the other one had something to be cranked and you have to have power to start because it's like a generator and all of that. And men just won't buy EV cars because it's not masculine. Yeah, that's the word she uses. So the whole craze was machine has to be masculine. It can't be silent and working on batteries. It's a very feminine. And although the electric cars also were being sold, the fact is most of the financial decisions then, and it's probably true even today, rests with men. So family, if they and cars when they came out, they were not the cheapest things out there. So you probably would be buying 2 cars. That's Donna, my dog. And last time you met Paula, my dog. So she basically says, because of the positioning and this crave for men to have something which is more cumbersome, makes much more noise, etc., etc. Eventually, the most companies let go of EVs, and therefore not much the cost for combustion kept going down because more R&D happened there. And it was like a very insightful story for me. I'm like, wow. I mean, if you read the books, there are no specific details of which companies, etc. But I was very fascinated because I had no clue that there were electric charging stations in New York in 1920. And obviously none of that infrastructure really developed, and then it was all dismantled because the industry never picked up. But I mean, it is picking up now. There is this paragraph in this book which says, "Might things have turned out differently had our view on gender been different. 100 years ago, electric fire engines, taxis and buses roamed many of the world's major metropolises. Then they disappeared. Instead, petrol-powered technology became the dominant form of technology, bringing pollution, noise and odors with it. So had early 20th century society not looked down on the electric car as feminine, would history have followed a different track?"
Fair. Nice. So I want to start on this book, not from Elizabeth Colbert, from Rachel Carlson. Rachel Carlson. She was also a women author, and she did a book called Silent Spring in the early 60s or maybe late 50s about the effect of pesticide on lakes. And basically what she studied was that these birds are dropping dead, and that's because they're eating the fish which have injected the runoff, the pesticide runoff, and the herbicide and the fertilizer runoff that's going into the Great Lakes. So the book was very, very, very popular. It led to the formation of EPA in the US. And the reason I bring it is because Elizabeth Colbert's, this book's first chapter starts about the upper Mississippi White River. I don't know where it is, to be honest. I'm saying it as if I live there and I've gone boating there, but I haven't. It starts off that about 30-40 years back, these guys introduced a fish species in the area to basically consume the extra growth that's happening in the river because of the herbicide fertilizer runoff. So the idea was that, hey, we have messed up this lake, let's clean it up by adding this fish. Now, after a while, it was very clear that this fish is a very aggressive species. So the fish have managed to kill all the other fish. And now their challenge is that, oh no, we have to control this other fish that we have introduced. And the other example is to control the fish in a particular area, what they've done is a particular channel where the river water flows, they've electrified a zone of it so that the fish can't cross it. If they cross, they'll die for like whatever. So throughout the book, Elizabeth gives multiple examples of these things. And towards the last part of the book, she talks about how a group of scientists today believe that, and this is complete news to me, I don't know if you've already heard of it, that we are so far down the global warming situation that we will never be able to reverse it. And the only option we have now, I don't believe it, some scientists believe it, the only option we have is to reduce the amount of sunlight coming to Earth. So they are exploring ways to throw billions of tiny particles into the air to block sunlight. And so the book name Under White Sky comes from that. Like, it may so be possible that and so so you let me just give you half a minute to absorb that. The thing that I think about when I read this book, and she has a line which says the logic of the Anthropocene is control, and if it doesn't work, more control. And so and I think of it, and in a business sense also, it's very true. The logic of business today is control, measurement, control, measurement. And if something is not working, what do? More control, more measurement, more breakups of the more task lists, more timesheets. It's just more and more control. And I don't know, it's just a powerful thought to me that this is the way we think. If something doesn't work, control it more, measure it more, control it more, measure it. How does the author suggest what is the ideal way to think or approach the way we deal with nature? I mean, she's a journalist, she's not a scientist. So she's basically telling us stories of other scientists, and obviously the science is a little bit more obvious in place that, hey, we have to do this. And sometimes it's more ambiguous. We're not sure whether we should do this or do that. So no, the author doesn't offer a solution. The author offers a perspective that, as human beings, we have this urge to control and fix, and control and fix, and it's the never stopping urge.
All right, great. I think I have been wanting, but this book is not so much about climate change and stuff, is it?
It's a journalistic,
so it's take on climate change.
Sometimes the take on climate change is very clear. So you would still want to pick it up because you get to know so much more, and there's so many examples in this. And what I like about it is a very breezy read. And if you feel like you want to go deep into something, there are enough segues for you to, hey, I want to learn more about this, let me Google it up, or hey, I want to learn more about this, let me check out other work or the work of the scientist that she's referring to. So that way you can go in as deep or not.
Nice. So hope you guys pick up one of these books, or maybe both of them, and hope you also gain some new perspectives about how our society functions and how we have arrived to the present that we are at.